Welcome back to The Mystery with Jensen and Marley. Like and follow our podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Follow us on Facebook and text or email who you think did it to jensen@jensenday.com. And remember, do not reveal the mystery. Enjoy! Johnny and his grandpa Joe were getting ready to embark on their train ride to Vermont to visit Joe's brother, whom Johnny had never met before. Both the men were very excited, but especially Grandpa Joe, as he had not seen his brother in many years, and he was looking forward to spending quality time with his grandson. Johnny has been obsessed with trains since he was a toddler, but he'd never gotten to take a real train ride before. So for his 9th birthday, his grandparents surprised him with a trip to Vermont that included an overnight train ride there and back. Johnny couldn't contain his excitement. On a cold January morning, Johnny's dad dropped the two of them off at the train station and they took off on their adventure. The train was nearly sold out. As they walked to the back, Joe looked around and wondered what everyone's story was, while Johnny gazed at the architecture of the train itself. Once they got seated, Johnny did not stop spewing off his train knowledge for nearly half an hour. He finally let off when a fellow passenger sat in the aisle seat next to Grandpa Joe. She introduced herself as May Evans, a young businesswoman headed to New York to meet with a few of their clients. Behind the three of them sat a young couple with their toddler, and in front of them an older gentleman with a grown-out beard. Other passengers filed in. 3 brothers going to a cousin's funeral, a young female going to surprise her long-distance boyfriend, families on their way to vacation in the mountains, and many other lone passengers, some running to something and others running from something. The attendants came around and checked for tickets, and after what felt like ages, the train whistle blew and they were off. Johnny nearly screeched from excitement as the train began to embark. May enjoyed his childlike wonder and didn't mind when Johnny leaned over his grandpa to inform her of the exact model and date of not only the train they traveled on, but about a dozen other Amtraks before his grandpa finally cut him off. All of the excitement must have worn Johnny out because it didn't take long before he was out like a light. Grandpa Joe fell asleep quickly after him while reading his newspaper. The two of them napped until May awoke them as the attendant was coming around for drink and food orders. The attendant was a silver-haired gentleman who couldn't have been much younger than Grandpa Joe, but he carried himself as if he was not a day over 30. Johnny watched him in awe as he took the order of the family sat behind them. Before the attendant could even get a word out, Johnny blurted at him, "I want to be just like you when I grow up." His admiration made the old man light up. "Is that right? You want to work on a train?" the attendant asked. "Yes, I want to ride the train every day and help people just like you." The attendant, Edward, and Johnny exchanged names, and the three of them ordered a cup of coffee for Joe and May and hot chocolate with whipped cream for Johnny. To pass the hours, Joe and Johnny played card games like Uno and Skip-Bo, and May even joined them for a couple of rounds. Johnny bonded with the toddler behind them by making silly faces at the little boy. And while May took a particularly long bathroom break, Joe took the time to learn about the men sitting across the aisle from them. When May returned to her seat, Joe couldn't help but notice that she looked a little shaken up. He thought maybe she was feeling unwell, but her flushed face and shaky hands made him think it was more than that. Before they knew it, Edward was coming back around, gathering dinner orders. May and Joe found it amusing yet delightful how the dry chicken and room-temperature potatoes were the best meal Johnny had ever had. As if it couldn't get any better, Edward snuck Johnny an extra chocolate chip cookie, and the little boy nearly started crying. Grandpa Joe and Johnny fell asleep almost immediately after dinner, and when Joe woke up about an hour later, May wasn't in her seat. He figured this would be a good time for him to take a bathroom break too. As he was going to walk up to the second level, he noticed May at the front of the train, crouched in the aisle talking to a man. She was looking at him, but he looked straight ahead like he didn't even notice she was there. Joe did not want her to see him watching, so he didn't stare long, but he swore he saw tears welling up in her eyes. Once he got back to his seat, May returned shortly after and had the same scared look on her face that he noticed a few hours before. Joe did not pry, but asked her if she wanted to help him with his crossword. May grinned and politely declined, saying she better get some sleep as her stop arrives early in the morning. But Joe couldn't help but notice that May never did close her eyes. She kept them peered on the front of the train where the mysterious man sat. It was past midnight now, and May had just barely fallen asleep. In her light slumber, she heard the sound of flickering lights. When she opened her eyes, it was nothing but darkness. Then, the shrill sound of train tracks breaking, hard and fast. Grandpa Joe woke abruptly as Johnny grabbed onto him tightly. "What's happening, Grandpa?" Johnny's voice was soft and shaky. I don't know, buddy. I'm sure it's just a mechanical error and we'll be moving again soon." Johnny nodded, but he wasn't convinced. "Where did May go?" he asked. Grandpa Joe looked over and May was not in her seat. He told Johnny to stay seated no matter what and asked the men across the aisle to keep an eye on him. Then Joe got up to look for May. His stomach was in a pit of knots as he walked through the dark aisles with only the emergency lights to guide him. Edward's voice came over the speaker, urging passengers to stay in their seats while they worked on getting the train up and running again. Grandpa Joe walked through 3 cabins before he found May sitting in a row by herself. Her head was slumped sideways, and from the back it looked like she was sleeping soundly. Joe grabbed her shoulder and leaned down towards her face, and he quickly realized May was not sleeping. He shook her forcefully and called her name, but May wasn't breathing. She was dead. Within minutes, the cabin was closed off, and the conductor demanded everyone stay put. The train wasn't moving, and nobody knew when it might again. Johnny curled up in his grandpa's lap, and they sat there silently as whispers spread like wildfire throughout the train. What was she doing up there? Did she have a stroke? A heart attack? Who was the man that Joe saw her talking to earlier? All of these questions that no one had an answer to. The conductor came over the speaker, and the train slowly began to move again. Johnny's first train ride was going to be remembered not for the laughs and joy, but for secrets and for death. Thanks for listening to The Mystery with Jensen and Marley. Like and follow our podcast on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and text or email who you think did it to jensen@jensenday.com. And remember, do not reveal the mystery. Bye!